So the first thing we're gonna do is draw these popsicles, and we wanna think about what we normally do in art. Try to fill up that space as much as you can. The first thing I'm gonna do, and I am gonna give you a ruler if you want, but if you feel like you're more comfortable not using a ruler, then don't use a ruler. But the first thing you're gonna do is a line, and we don't wanna put that line right in the center of the paper. We wanna off-center it a little bit, because we're gonna be drawing this first line here. And we don't want it to go all the way to the top and bottom of the paper either, because you're gonna need a lot of room for the bottom of that popsicle. So I'm gonna start about right here. I'm using a Sharpie so you can see, but we'll use pencils. And you're just gonna draw a line about that long. So that's a vertical line. And then we're gonna do some diagonal lines that look like they're coming down. It'll kind of make it look like a shooting arrow. So I'm gonna take my pencil and I wanna keep them about the same length. So if I was to take my ruler and line it up straight, so it has to be like, that's not straight across my paper. Straight across would be just like this. They should pretty much kind of line up at the same point. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is another line at the bottom, and I wanna try to make this one just as long as this. So I'm gonna do a diagonal here and a diagonal here. Okay, and now I'm gonna meet those. And as I get closer, if they're not gonna meet, I just kind of wedge them out a little bit with my marker. So I'm gonna bring that one out, and there we go. All right, now I'm gonna do another diagonal line. This one's gonna go up, and it's gonna stop about the same point where this one stopped. And then I'm gonna do a straight line that's going to be just as long as this line here in the middle of this one. So if I was to take my ruler and line them up, they would be about the same. And then I'm gonna connect those with a line that goes like this. So there's a diagonal comes from the bottom here that meets to that last one. I'm gonna do another diagonal up here, try to keep it the same length as this. Double check if I need to with my ruler. It's pretty close. Okay, I'm gonna come down. And then I'm gonna have another one that connects like that. So far I haven't done anything to the bottom yet. So what I wanna do for the bottom is I'm gonna draw the popsicle sticks first. And one of the things that people do is they draw their popsicle sticks way too skinny and small. Make them big. Look how big my popsicle sticks are. So I'm gonna come under here and I'm just gonna do a really nice size big U. I'm gonna do one on here as well. And, you know, they should be about the same because the popsicle sticks should kind of line up the bottoms of them with each other. I'm not gonna add an edge to this, so I'm gonna come around that popsicle stick and draw an edge that then comes and meets at the bottom. Same thing here, curves in and meets at the bottom. And then now we're gonna draw some lines to those popsicle sticks. So I'm gonna come to this outer corner and I'm gonna draw a diagonal line that meets the edge of this popsicle. I'm gonna find this middle line where the two popsicles meet, grab my pencil, put it there, and I wanna try to drag it so that it meets at the same point on this side that this one met. So about right there. Same thing here. And then come to this one and try to draw it about where that one ends. See how they kind of, it's not gonna be perfect, but they kind of end at the same point. Okay, so now that I have those drawn in, what I'm gonna do is some shading. I wanna try to pick a color, just one color to shade with. We're just gonna do one. So you can pick any color you want. The one that I would stay clear of is yellow. Yellow is really hard to create a dramatic look with. You can make a value with it, but it's very difficult. So let's try to use any color other than yellow. So I'm gonna use this dark blue, and I'm gonna start with my shadows first. That's the dark spot that my sunlight's not hitting. They have to be on the same side. So you wouldn't have a shadow on this side on this popsicle, but then this side on this, because the sun is gonna hit both the same sides on each popsicle. So for the shadows, One area I do add the shadows in always is the bottom of the popsicle. So I'm gonna outline the bottom popsicle. I'm gonna stay kind of clear of that popsicle stick for now, because that part's not gonna get a lot of sunlight. There's a lot of popsicle under it. Okay, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna add our shadows on the same side. So it really doesn't matter what side you pick. I'm gonna pick the right side of my popsicle, so that would be this right here. And then on this popsicle, it would be on the same edge, the right side, so not here, but here, because it's the right side of the popsicle, right and right. So how we color these is, as we always do, outline the shape, and for your shadows, you should be pushing hard to get that dark value and holding your crayon near the tip, so that way we get a nice dark value. And still taking my time. Notice how I'm coloring up and down this way. If I go this way, it's hard to stay in the lines. You can go in multiple directions, but just be careful. All right, so that's a really dark value. Now I'm gonna go in the other one, and I'm just gonna outline this. This is the right side of this popsicle. Fill it in. Okay, so now we have our highlights left. So for those, the key thing is to push light on your crayon, almost to the point where it feels like you're not really touching on the paper very much. You can always darken something later, but you cannot lighten things up. So when you do this, you want to push extra light. So what I'm going to do, very little pressure on my crayon. I'm going to go through, and essentially what's happening is some of that background white paper is just popping through this a little more, and that's making it look lighter. And I'm pushing very light, because once again, I can always go in and add more pressure later. Very, very light, barely pressing on that. Yours might even look lighter than mine. And you can see that dramatic effect of the highlight against the... Now, what's nice about coloring the highlight in is you don't have to, you know, be very careful about staying in the lines, because you're not going to notice if you get into that dark area. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. I'm now going to go in the popsicle stick, and again, you're going to want to pick one color. I'm going to do brown, kind of like a normal popsicle stick color. One area is your shadows, one is your highlights. So your shadow part of your popsicle stick should line up with, or your highlights and shadows should line up with the highlights and shadows of your popsicle stick. So I'm gonna make the edge dark on my popsicle stick, because the right side of everything is where my shadows are. And on mine, I have my shadows on the right side, and the edge of my popsicle stick's on the right side. So those areas we're gonna add a lot of pressure to. And then for the front part, because it lines up with the highlight, the left-hand side, I'm gonna add less pressure to. Okay, there we go. So now what we're gonna do is we are going to go in. I'm just gonna draw a line kind of across here, try to guess where it would come out on this side for a table for our popsicle sticks. And you're just gonna pick another color. It doesn't matter what color you pick. And we're just gonna kind of color in using the edge of the crayon very lightly, a table. This time what we're gonna do is paint these and add some drips to look like some dripping popsicles. Okay, now we're gonna paint our backgrounds in. We're gonna pick a color for our background. I think I'm gonna use orange, because it's very different from those blue popsicles. And I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna outline around the tabletop. I'm gonna come up, notice how I'm using my ballerina toes, and I'm outlining my shape before I paint around it. You can even outline twice if you need to, but this is gonna help us stay outside the lines for right now. So I'm gonna go in and now start to paint. If it sounds scratchy, that means you need more water. If you want it darker, roll that brush gently in the paint a little longer. So this is looking pretty good to me. I'm just gonna fill that entire background in now that I have my popsicle outlined. Dripping effect is by using gravity, and how we're going to do that is by pulling our paper up. So it's okay to kind of give this paper a minute to dry, because then your drips might work a little better. But in case your background is still wet, what we're going to do is make sure that we choose colors that are going to work well with this orange. So think about those things we've talked about in class. What colors are going to work well with this orange? Right, if I look at the color wheel, whatever's next to orange is going to work well. I could do yellow, but I don't think the yellow is going to pop as much. I'm going to do maybe the red. So I'm going to go in, get a little red on my brush, and I'm just going to make like a little, kind of like a little pile of paint here. See how I did that? And before it dries and soaks in, I'm going to pull the paper up and let it drip a little bit down my paper. Now, it might not want to drip down that popsicle because your popsicle was done with crayon, and crayon and watercolor don't mix. When you go to do your dots, if you're noticing like it's not really making a little puddle of water, then add more water to it. All right, so I'm going to lift this up, and you'll see it's starting to drip. If I want it to go this way, I can, have it go that way. This is going to give us a really neat effect here to look like there's some popsicles dripping in the background. So I'm literally just taking my brush and adding it in the water if I need to, and then I'm going to drip it down. That one even got a little bit on my popsicle. That's kind of neat. So you're going to keep going. If you have extra time and you would like to do that second color that's next to your first, so maybe I want to try to use that yellow because I have a little extra time, that's fine. Just make sure whatever colors you're using are analogous to that background paint that you chose to use in your project. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. I'm just going to add the little drips at the top. I can even add some on the table if I wanted to, but again, that was done with crayons, so it might not quite drip the way you would like it to. Friends, so when you're done, you should get something like this. Now, keep in mind less is more sometimes, so you do not need to overdo all the popsicle drips.